Hey, everybody, welcome. Here we are in the great Crescent Stone rereading. Today is chapter 26. We're almost into the final quarter of the book. Quite exciting. There are a decent number of twists and turns coming over the course of this next week, which I'm pretty excited about. And today, in today's chapter, our first death. A character dies today, never to return. So it's going to be exciting. Just a reminder that tomorrow, if you're watching live with us, our new friend Diva Fagan will be joining us to talk about her novel Rival Magic, which is the story of two young women, one of whom is she's studying to be a magician, loves magic, but is not particularly good at it, and discovers that the scullery maid in the same house doesn't care about magic at all, but is naturally gifted and can do gigantic, easy magic. And it's kind of about their rivalry. It turns out they're on different sides of a variety of things happening in their culture, their rivalry and ultimate friendship. So it's a lot of fun. I guess that was a spoiler, ultimate friendship, but I guess it was to come. Yes. So don't miss our time with Diva tomorrow. Let's see. Everybody's saying hello. The Scales family. What? Hi, the Scales are here. And it's Thursday. The writing class ended last week. Welcome, Scales. Well, that's a nice surprise. Glad to have you here. There's Lily Me. Hello. Hi there. Here's Caitlin. Hi, Caitlin. The Sims. Oh, Elizabeth is solo today. We missed yesterday. We got safe haircuts. Good job. I did not get a safe haircut. I mean, not that I have much to cut, but there it is. It's getting a little woo. When my hair grows long, it starts to get curly. So we'll have to see if we make it there or not. I do have clippers though. I might just shave it. Dr. Awesome says, hello, happy Thursday. Hey there. Good to see you. Look, my sister says hi. Hello. It's Dawn. My daughter's asking who. It's Aunt Dawn. And Jonathan is here. Hey, Jonathan. Glad you're here. All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. This chapter's not super long today, but we should see what's happening because I left you on a bit of a cliffhanger yesterday. As you recall, Madeline Oliver can't breathe without the help of the Elenil magic. She's come to the Sunlit Lands after an agreement with Hanali, an Elenil representative who said for 1 human year of service to the Elenil, fighting the horrific monsters, the Skim, she could receive her breathing back forever. Her good friend Jason went with her, and they are now in the Sunlit Lands. However, tonight is the Festival of the Turning, a special night when all of magic is turned off for 24 hours. It's a way that the Elenil magic recharges, and Madeline is with her friend Jason, her friend Shula, who's her roommate in the Sunlit Lands, their new friend Bailea, who is Kakri, which is a group of people in the Sunlit Lands. And of course, they've run into Hanali, his parents, Vivi and Reska. But now that magic is music. Now that magic has turned off, Madeline has lost her breath. And at the same time, the Skim have attacked the city, which was unexpected. And the worst of the Skim warriors are these horrific guys called the Black Skulls. They wear all white except for their black gloves, their black boots, and they wear animal skulls that are painted black. And one of them has come and demanded that Madeline Oliver, the girl who cannot breathe, be turned over to him. So not only are Madeline and her friends running from the Black Skull, from the Skim, but also from all the Elenil and others who might want to turn them over to keep themselves safe. We left in the last chapter with Madeline and friends on top of the roofs, running, trying to get to the castle they live in, Westwind, when Breakbones, the worst of the Skim that we've met so far, came in front of them, promising to kill Madeline and turn her dead body over to Jason, and then to kill Jason as well, which is a little promise he made Jason when he was in prison once upon a time. So there we go, chapter 26, Battle at Westwind. And as I said, there is a character who dies in this chapter. My daughter's in the room, Zoe, and she's over there saying, "Let it be Hanali." She hates Hanali so much. Okay, chapter 26, Battle at Westwind. The knight at last his sword lays down, his grimace gone, no more a frown, his helm replaced with glorious crown, a gift from the majestic one, from the gallant life and glorious death of Sir Samuel Griffinhart, an Ellenil poem. "The girl first," one of the skims said, his voice deep and full of violent intention. Jason shuddered. Shula and Bailea's backs were against his, and he knew Bailea would slow the vicious skim with it who advanced on them. But Madeline, doubled over and coughing, would be an easy target for Breakbones. His stomach clenched at the thought of failure, his molars ground into each other, and his jaw ached with the sudden pressure. He hadn't left everything behind to come into this crazy place to fail. I will protect Madeline. He would fight death himself if it came to that. Thoughts of Jenny came piling in, his sister. Not the good thoughts, not the memories of how they had cared for one another, the fun times of making jiaozi with their mom or reading books together at night, not the memories of how she always called him Didi, the Chinese word for little brother, and he always called her Jiejie. No, he saw her upside down and covered in blood, begging him for help because he hadn't spoken up. He hadn't spoken the truth. His lack of courage had led the way to that moment. That cowardice a year ago had built his courage today. The pain and suffering his silence had caused were so much more than he could have ever imagined possible. He would never take the coward's path again, especially not when the life of a friend was in danger. Bailea's spinning blades kept the skim at bay, and Shula stepped away from them and lit on fire. It's her magic. Her magic must not have left her yet. She waded into the skim with a grim determination, and they fell away in terror. One of the skim dropped a sword, and Jason snatched it up. He could barely lift it, but he managed one awkward swing at the skim in front of him. They fell back, but then, with laughs like monstrous frogs croaking, they advanced again. One of them knocked the sword from his hand with ease. Jason yelped. Madeline leaned against him, losing consciousness. She said his name just before her eyes rolled back into her head, and she fell. He scooped his arm around her, holding her up. He couldn't pick up a sword again, not that it would help, and the skim had him backed against the edge of the roof. Bailea saw them and spun in their direction, but there were at least 4 skim between them now, and Breakbones was engaging her complete attention. Shula was at the far end of the roof, clearing a path for them, lighting the skim like torches. Jason wrapped his arms around Madeline's waist, holding her in front of him, whispered a quick prayer, and leaned backward. The world tilted and they fell. His body would cushion her fall, or at least he hoped so. The looks on the faces of the skim on the roof, peering over the edge with wide black eyes and frog-like mouths agape, was almost worth it. If it was the last thing Jason saw, he would be satisfied with that. He hadn't seen another option. He couldn't make it to the stairs. In no way would he let Breakbones murder Madeline, not if falling to their deaths could prevent it. The impact took his breath away. He groaned. They were still moving. They had landed in a hay cart pulled by a stampeding horse, plowing through the crowd on the street. A quick glance at the skim showed them even more startled. If they had been cartoons, their jaws would have hit the street. He and Madeline were alive. "I'm alive!" he shouted up to the skim, instantly regretting it. They disappeared from the edge, then reappeared, descending the wall feet first. The cart bucked wildly, knocking Madeline off him. He shoved her deeper in the hay, hoping it would keep her in the cart. The cart hit a hole in the street, and he flew for a moment off of the pile of hay and into the air. He fell into the cart, biting his tongue in the process. An arrow zipped past his head, lodging in the wooden plank behind him. He leapt onto the driver's seat and grabbed hold of the flailing reins. "Ya, mule!" he shouted, because that's what they always shouted in movies, even though this wasn't a mule. Or a horse. A closer look made it clear his rampaging, quote, horse was actually a gigantic, furious goat. "Ya, goat!" he yelled, and the beast came under some semblance of control, which is to say it stopped careening side to side on the street and ran straight ahead, scattering the crowd as Jason yelled, Runaway goat, make way! Bailea was keeping pace, running along the top of the buildings to their right. Her long legs stretched to their maximum. She vaulted over Skim, dodged weapons, and cleared the spaces between roofs. She flew from a rooftop, her legs tucked beneath her, her bladed staff held under her left arm, her hair flying out behind her. She landed in the hay beside Madeline. She slipped beside Jason, taking the reins. A clever escape, Wusong. It was an accident, he said, and she grinned at him. We should be able to get to Westwind quickly with this cart, Bailea said. Shula came falling like a white-hot meteor toward them, also landing in the hay and lighting it immediately on fire. Come on, Jason yelled. He scrambled into the back and dragged Madeline clear. Shula's flames only grew brighter. My magic is out of control, she shouted. We have to stop the cart, Jason said to Bailea. She shook her head. We ride as long as we can. The Skim are faster on foot than we. She was right. The Skim were loping in their wake, in the street and along the rooftops. If they abandoned the cart, they'd be in the same situation they had been on the roof. The cart shuddered as Bailea steered the goat around a few runaway Skim children. Shula was shoveling flaming bales of hay out the back, sending up jets of sparks behind them. They hit a corner hard, and a wheel on the cart wobbled, letting out a tremendous shriek. We're losing a wheel! Bailea whipped the reins harder, shouting at the goat. Jason wasn't sure how going faster would help, and then he saw the arched rise of a narrow bridge ahead. There was no way the cart would fit. Hold, Madeline, Bailea cried, furiously driving the goat toward the narrow passage. Bracing his legs as well as he could against the footboard, Jason wrapped Madeline tightly in his arms and ducked his head, waiting for the impact. Just before they hit, the right-hand wheel came off, rolling alongside them as the cart crashed to the ground, sparks rising from the cobblestone streets. Shula barely managed to grab onto the cart's rail. The terrified goat lunged for the bridge, wedging the cart between stone columns rising on either side. His head ringing, Jason dragged Madeline over the front of the cart, weaving his way past the angry goat. Bailea motioned him forward, already beyond the animal and facing the bridge. I will hold the Skim here. Those who refuse the bridge will be slowed by the river. Make all haste for Westwind. Do not pause. Do not linger. No loitering? Your advice is no loitering? He hoisted Madeline onto his shoulder with Bailea's help and stumbled down the street. The crowds had thinned, whether because they were farther from the square or because the goat had flattened or blocked everything headed this way, Jason didn't know. Smoke curled through the city now, along with the distant cries of terrified people. The city was no longer dark because it was on fire. Jason was sweating before he got out of earshot of Bailea. The whistling sound of her staff was often followed by the impact of metal on leather armor. He felt Shula before he heard her, the blazing heat of her flames moving alongside him. My flames won't go out, she said. I can't help you carry her. We're almost there. He could, in fact, see Westwind's gate. It wasn't open, though, and he wasn't sure how they would get through it. 5 blocks to go, more or less. I'll run a full block ahead of you, Shula said. Make sure it's clear. Right, he said, gasping. Madeline stirred. Jason? It's okay, he said. We're almost to Westwind. I can walk, she said. He set her down. Walking together might make them faster. He wasn't sure. She leaned on him and they struggled onward. Shula stood at the intersection, her head turning both ways to take in the people on the street. Quickly, she said. Madeline was able to nearly trot, though her breathing came in fits. Her skin was clammy and alarmingly cold. I can carry you, he said, but Madeline shook her head, a determined look on her face. When they reached the intersection, Shula immediately ran to the next. At the next intersection, she did the same. They were 3 blocks away now. Jason shouted at the top of his lungs for someone to open the gate. Ruth Mabue's tiny, blindfolded face appeared at the top of the wall. We cannot open the gate, she called. The Skim are too close. Jason craned his neck to look back toward the goat cart. He couldn't see the cart anymore or hear the battle, but there were no Skim either. I don't see any, he said. Swim the moat, and we'll throw you a rope. Madeline's face set in a grim, determined frown. She would try. Jason didn't see how she would do it, though, and the Skim couldn't be that close. He hadn't seen any. Shula hadn't seen any. Then, A block ahead of Shula, on the street that crossed in front of the gate, a figure loomed out of the deep shadows of the street. His massive arms had gashes, his clothes were burned, and he was dripping with water. No doubt he had swum the river rather than fight his way over the goat cart. Breakbones. Shula picked up the pace, deliberately running at him, her flames burning even hotter. Quickly, Madeline gasped, and Jason limped alongside her, moving toward the boat. Shula danced around Breakbones. His superior strength was nothing compared to her speed. She scalded his arms badly every time he took a swing at her, and thus far he hadn't managed to connect. Jason got Madeline to the edge of the moat. It still had a 3-foot drop into the foul water around the castle. He helped Madeline to a sitting position and got ready to help her slip in, then follow. Ruth's face appeared again above. The knight! He's opening the bridge! The knight! Jason squeezed Madeline's hand. Why was the knight inside instead of at the festival? Why didn't he open the gates as soon as he saw Madeline and Jason on their way? Wasn't his job to fight the skim? Why was he hiding in the castle? They made their way toward the descending bridge. When it was nearly to the ground, Jason boosted Madeline onto it, and she hobbled inside. The Knight of the Mirror flew over the bridge on his silver stallion, Ryo. Shula's flame went out. Breakbones laughed. Your magic is extinguished for the night. He backhanded her, sending her flying into the moat. Then the knight was upon the skim, barely missing him with his lance. Breakbones grabbed the knight by the waist, twisted hard, and smashed him onto the stone road. The Knight of the Mirror was no fool, and he rolled to the side just before the skim's fists pounded the pavement. Go to the Lady of Westwind at once, the knight called to Jason. Jason, flat on his belly beside the moat, was able to reach Shula's outstretched hand. Several people ran from inside the castle and helped him pull her out of the putrid water. What about Bailea? He asked. The knight fought the skim using only a sword. She's cockry, Shula said. She won't stop fighting. Get Madeline to the knight's solar, Jason said to Ruth. Ruth stood close to Madeline, letting the breathless girl lean on her. Jason had to get to the wall. He needed to get to higher ground so he could find Bailea. If he could get his hands on a bow, maybe he could help her. When he reached the top, he was breathless and exhausted. His heart sank as he looked over the lip of the wall. It wasn't just Breakbones out there. There were hundreds of skim, all converging on the castle like a swarm of ants. He scanned the crowd, or what he could see of it in the darkness, and saw to his dismay the 3 white-robed skulls moving toward the castle as well. Send out the girl, one of the black skulls demanded. The one who cannot breathe, Madeline Oliver. A few of the castle's residents were trying to hold the drawbridge long enough to keep it open so the knight could return. Ryo was nowhere to be seen. The knight was in the thick of battle and making a slow, tortured path back. One of the black skulls was moving toward the drawbridge now, and nothing stood in his way. In the guardhouse, a small room built into the stone wall, Jason found a bow. He stood as he had been taught and put his fingers on the string, an arrow knocked between them. It felt strange without the magic to guide him. He sighted along the arrow, pointing at the heart of one of the black skulls. He pulled back carefully, then released the string. The arrow went sideways. The string snapped his forearm, and he dropped the bow, crying out in pain. The arrow fell awkwardly into the moat, followed by the bow. A horn blew, a brighter, higher sound than the horns of the skim. Rondello bounded into the fray on Evernew, his white stag. Close behind him came some of the army of the Elenil, the men and women who were loyal to the Knight of the Mirror. Rondello, whose battle prowess had never been a gift of magic, but rather of hard-earned skill, cut through the skim. David and Kakoa came behind him. They weren't wearing their war gear, but they had their weapons of choice. They moved slower and with less fluidity than they had with magic, but still, they were making a difference in the battle. Hold the bridge, Rondello cried, and his people spread out in a semicircle, pushing the skim away from the entrance. The fighting grew vicious along that semicircle, but the Elenil army managed to hold it. There were more Elenil warriors in the crowd than Jason had ever seen. Near Rondello, an Elenil man in a shining silver helmet repaired every break in the line, running back and forth to the places in most need. He held 2 swords, and when he waded into the skim, the swords flashed with reflected firelight. Ryo came galloping back toward the castle now, Bailea on his back. "The bridge has fallen," she shouted. "More skim are on their way." The Knight of the Mirror turned to his side, and as Bailea thundered past, he grabbed her forearm and slung himself up behind her. "Close the drawbridge," he cried, and immediately it began to ratchet upward. Westwind's defenders continued to fight as the drawbridge inclined. The knight's horse jumped onto it, and as soon as they hit the ground inside, the knight slung himself down and joined the people in closing the bridge, lending his strength to turning the wheel. Rondello and Evernew and the Elenil with the silver helmet leapt off the drawbridge, remaining outside the castle. They guarded the closing gate, keeping the skim off, pushing them back. The three black skulls shoved their way to the front of the conflict. The silver-helmeted Elenil spun and danced as his twin blades easily deflected two of the three skulls. Rondello joined him, leaping from Evernew's back to engage the third skull, allowing the stag to hold another hole in their line. Breakbones slunk up behind Rondello. Jason shouted a warning, and Rondello spun, kicking Breakbones in the chest. During this momentary distraction, the third black skull turned his attention to the silver-helmeted Elenil and ran a sword through his heart. He fell like a puppet with cut strings. Rondello screamed and skidded into the trio of skulls, fighting them with a fierce passion. Jason ran for the gate, shouting at them to hold it. The knight heard him and paused. "The silver Elenil has fallen," Jason said, and he ran up the bridge, which was so high now he could scarcely make it to the top. He hung over the lip, swung his body twice, and just managed to jump across, landing with a bone-jarring thump. Rondello kept all the skim at bay himself, with only Evernew's help. Jason scooped up the body of the silver-helmeted Elenil. He felt lighter than he should, even though he was completely limp, as if Jason had picked up a bag that should be full of bricks, but was stuffed instead with pillows. "Evernew!" he shouted, and the stag fell back to his side. He put the body over the stag's back and at Rondello's instructions climbed on himself. The stag leapt to the top of the bridge, skidding inside the castle walls. The Knight of the Mirror shouted for them to close the bridge, just as Rondello vaulted through the gap. Jason slipped from the stag, pulling the Elenil man down and laying him gingerly on his back. David and Kakoa appeared beside him, helping Jason get the man's arms and legs laid out gently. He didn't appear to be breathing. Jason carefully removed the silver helmet. The still, quiet face looked familiar. "Oh no," Kakoa said. "It's Vivi." Jason knew that name, but the terror of the last hour prevented him from remembering, but David filled in the blanks when he said, "Hanali's dad." Rondello fell to his knees beside Vivi's body. "Ah, brave soul." Tears sprang from Rondello's eyes. On this night, of all nights, he fought. When his body cannot be mended with the magic of the sunlit lands, he is lost to us. He closed his eyes, and his next words came slowly, but surely, like a poem being quoted. "His bowl is spilt, his thread unspun. His life is past and just begun. He treads now in a clime of sun, in the land of the majestic one." "They're climbing the walls!" Rondello rose smoothly to his feet. "Come, friends, let us avenge Vivi, son of Gelentil, father of Hanali." "No," the Knight of the Mirror said. "These three young men must come with me to my solar. Rondello, protect Vivi's body, so the skim will not take possession of him." Rondello lifted Vivi in his arms and set him gently on Evernew's back. "When the wall is breached, I will take him to Hanali." The knight put his hand on Rondello's shoulder. "Let us pray that our people can hold the walls long enough to accomplish one more task. Come, boys, stop staring at the walls and follow me." The end of chapter 26. Ooh, Trouble in Westwind. And that is our last reading for the week, which means you got to wait till Monday. Let's see. We've had a couple comments. Don says, "We use clippers to give Todd a haircut. It wasn't his worst haircut." That's good. Oh boy. Let's see. Caitlin says, Honolly is one of those characters that you should hate, but just can't help but love. Zoe's over there making gagging faces now. She does not love him. You know, he is a favorite of Sarah Rubio, who we had on the show, one of the editors. Daniel Martinez says, hi from Guatemala. Hey, Daniel. Thanks for tuning in. Lily Me says, rest in peace, Vivi. Aw. Let's see. Dr. Awesome says, I have to confess something about Evernew. Every time he enters the scene, I don't picture a white stag. Instead, for some reason, the thing that pops into my head is that dog statue Joey and Chandler got on Friends. Oh, okay. Hey, you know what? Reading is magical. Whatever comes into your head is okay. Who am I as the author to tell you that you as the reader are incorrect in how you're picturing things? If I didn't say it clear enough, that's on me, not on you. Okay, just a reminder again, this Friday, tomorrow, Diva Fagan, author of Rival Magic, will be with us. It's going to be great. Do not forget, Tyndale.com is taking orders. If you cannot stand to wait anymore to know what's going to happen in the last bit of the book, you can order your copy at Tyndale.com. The Crescent Stone, narrated by Natasha Sudek, is available from Oasis Audio at oasisaudio.com. And don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Every time you like, every time you comment, it's like doing me a little favor. I'm going to be in your debt by the end of this thing. And when you subscribe, whether at youtube.com/Matt Michelatis Books or at facebook.com/Michelatis Books, it helps you see when the next thing's coming. And it also helps me out in that I'm trying to get to 150 YouTube subscribers, and I am at 147. I believe in myself. I can do it. Okay, we have 2 more comments coming here. Let's see. Lily Me says, I'm sure Vivi will never be remembered, and his words are lost forever. Ah, I see what you did there. And the Scales family says bye. Bye, Scales family. See you tomorrow. And Jess says, that was too suspenseful. Every time an old friend showed up today, my heart sunk a little more. It was a little frightening. And you know, in the Sunlit Lands, I'm a big believer that if they die, they're dead. We don't have resurrection scenes. Or do we? Nope, I don't think we do. Oh boy. All right, my friends, have a wonderful day. And I will see you tomorrow for our conversation with Diva Fagan. See you soon. Be safe out there.